Carla Stefaniac believed in filling the glass to the brim. She was the kind of person who saw a closed sign and took it as a personal challenge. A 35-year-old insurance agent from Hollandale Beach, Florida, with a laugh that could cut through the din of a crowded bar, she lived for the next stamp in her passport. Iceland in an RV, skiing in Switzerland, weekends in Cuba. She documented it all with a vibrant, unapologetic energy. A fiery Latina from Venezuela who had chosen Florida as her home and the world as her playground. Her 36th birthday was approaching, and to celebrate, she planned a girls' trip to Costa Rica with her best friend and sister-in-law, April. It was a classic Carla itinerary: beaches, hot springs, incredible food, every moment optimized for joy. They landed on Thanksgiving Day 2018. The final leg of their adventure was an Airbnb villa in the mountains of Escazú, just outside San Jose. A gated complex with security, a pool, and a balcony with a postcard view. It was supposed to be the perfect, serene capstone. For days, their social media feeds were a cascade of sun-drenched bliss. On November 25th, Carla posted a photo by the pool, radiant. The trip was everything she'd hoped for. But April's flight home was a day earlier. Carla, ever the adventurer, decided to take the extra night alone. Her birthday was the next day, and her friends back in Fort Lauderdale already had a dinner reservation for her return. At 11:30 a.m. on November 27th, Carla hugged April goodbye at the airport. On her way back to the villa, her Uber driver offered a city tour. Carla, always up for an experience, said yes. She paid him in cash. She spent the afternoon sightseeing, sending photos to her family group chat, treating herself to a new purse and some jewelry. The driver dropped her back at Villa Lamas, apartment 8, in the late afternoon. She started getting ready for a night out at a jazz cafe. But the sky had other plans. A monstrous tropical storm was rolling in from the Pacific. By 8 p.m., Carla was alone in the villa. She completed her online check-in for her flight home the next day. She even texted the Uber driver from that afternoon, arranging for him to pick her up at 8:30 the next morning for some last-minute shopping before her 1:30 p.m. flight. Outside, the world was dissolving into a cacophony of wind and water. Branches lashed the windows. The rain on the tin roof was a deafening drum roll. She messaged her family, "I want to go out, but I'm dead tired." Then a sudden, absolute blackness. The power in the complex died. Carla's next message was tinged with a new anxiety. "It's raining hard." Power went off. Super sketchy. The power flickered back momentarily, but the damage to her sense of security was done. She wrote to April, "Okay, it's back. Creepy AF." Trying to calm her nerves, she got on a FaceTime call with a friend in New York. The storm raged. She mentioned she was thirsty. Her friend suggested boiling water, but she only had a skillet. Going out was unthinkable. Carla had an idea. There were security guards on the property. She told her friends she would just ask one of them for a bottle of water. It was a simple, logical solution. At around 9 p.m., her phone battery, strained from the call and the spotty power, finally died. The FaceTime screen went dark. The last image her friend saw was Carla's face, lit by the phone's glow, in a villa being swallowed by a storm. At 8:30 the next morning, Carla's birthday, the Uber driver arrived at Villa Lamas. She didn't show. He waited. Nothing. Puzzled, he drove away. April, now back in Florida, began calling the villa. A security guard answered. He told her Carla had already left. She had departed around 5 a.m., he said, with all her luggage. She'd gotten into an Uber and left. The story was specific. It was plausible. But to April, it felt instantly wrong. Why would Carla, who was meticulously organized, leave 8 hours early for a 30-minute drive to the airport? Why would she cancel on the driver she'd personally arranged, a man she'd spent the afternoon with and trusted? It made no sense. At 5:30 p.m., Carla's flight from Costa Rica landed at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. Her friends were there, birthday ready. She never got off the plane. The family's alarm bells, already ringing, became a siren. They called Costa Rican authorities and were given the standard line: wait 48 hours. She's an adult. She could have changed her plans. But the family knew Carla. They knew her habits, her punctuality, her constant communication. They pushed. Reluctantly, the police sent a patrol car to the villa. The scene was unnervingly normal. The Airbnb was spotless. Not just tidy, but deeply cleaned. In fact, new tourists had already checked in. Any potential evidence was being slept on, showered in, unknowingly contaminated. The cleaning staff told police they'd found nothing out of place. The police, with their 48-hour clock still ticking, saw no signs of a struggle. A woman had left early, case not yet open. The Stefaniac family launched a war room operation from Florida. A 60-person group chat was formed. Tasks were delegated. One team hounded the police, another bombarded Airbnb. Others took over social media, creating #FindCarla, and called every reporter they could find. They reached the Airbnb owner, who repeated the security guard's story, a 5 a.m. departure. But Carla's Uber account showed no such trip. There were no security cameras on the property to verify the tale. Then, a digital breadcrumb. Phone records showed Carla's device had briefly reconnected to the internet at 12:17 a.m., over 3 hours after her FaceTime died. The signal had not moved. It was still at Villa Llamas. She had never left for a 5 a.m. flight. The guard's story was a lie. Pressure mounted. Local news became national. The U.S. Embassy and the FBI began applying weight. 6 days after Carla vanished, the police returned to Villa Llamas with dogs. This time, they weren't looking for a missing tourist. They were looking for evidence of a crime. The scent of cleaning products was overwhelming. Bleach, vinegar. The place had been scrubbed. But forensics found what deep cleaning often misses. Carla's blood was on the bed and on the floor. And there was semen. The idyllic villa had been a crime scene. If Carla was alive, she had not left willingly. Days later, sniffer dogs in a wooded area about 300 meters from the complex, an area not accessible to the public, began to alert. Buried under leaves and plastic sheeting was Carla's partially nude, decomposing body. Her belongings, passport, laptop, suitcase, were scattered nearby. The autopsy revealed a death of brutal overkill violence, a blow to the head, multiple stab wounds, one with such force it fractured her vertebrae, a broken neck, a dislocated jaw, defensive wounds on her arms, DNA under her fingernails. She had fought with everything she had in that dark, thunderous villa. The investigation zeroed in on the man who had given the 5 a.m. story, the security guard on duty that night, Bismarck Espinoza Martinez, a 32-year-old Nicaraguan man with what police called an irregular immigration status. He lived in an apartment provided by the complex right next door to Villa Llamas, apartment 8. His job came with a master key and a uniform, a cloak of authority. His story unraveled under questioning. First, he saw her get into an Uber. Then he was asleep. Then he knew nothing. The fresh scratches on his body told a more consistent tale. His DNA matched the evidence under Carla's nails and in the room. Police would later learn he had even called his wife after the murder and confessed. He was arrested. Carla's brother, Carlos, was devastated. He had flown to Costa Rica and had actually shaken this man's hand, thanking him for his help. Bismarck had looked him in the eye and played his part. The legal process that followed felt like a second betrayal to the family. Initially, Bismarck was charged only with simple homicide, akin to second-degree murder, carrying a max of 18 years. The family, with help from U.S. Senator Marco Rubio's office, fought to have it upgraded, arguing the cleanup, the false story, and the disposal of the body showed premeditation. The charge was raised to first-degree murder for trial, but in a Costa Rican courtroom, without a jury, 3 judges acquitted him of first-degree murder. They found him guilty of the lesser charge. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. For the murder, mutilation, and disposal of Carla Stefaniac, he would be eligible for release in his late 40s. In the aftermath, the question became, who else failed Carla Stefaniac? Her family turned their grief into a civil lawsuit, not just against Bismarck, but against the Villa Llamas Resort and Airbnb. The lawsuit laid out a damning narrative of negligence. Bismarck Espinoza Martinez should never have been in that position of trust. The resort had performed no background check. His immigration status meant he was not legally authorized to work there. Yet they gave him a uniform, a master key, and an apartment on the grounds. Airbnb, the suit alleged, had created a dangerous illusion. They promoted the villa with glowing reviews, allegedly sanitizing past guest complaints about safety and personnel. They allowed it to operate outside the regulations that govern traditional hotels, regulations that might have mandated employee screening. They created a platform where a $50 lockbox and a 5-star review system mattered more than knowing who held the master key to your room in the middle of a storm. The lawsuit argued that the harm to Carla was a foreseeable and well-known hazard of the industry. A business, they claimed, cannot stick its head in the sand like an ostrich. Airbnb expressed heartbreak but admitted no fault. The Villa Llamas complex was ordered by a Costa Rican court to pay the family about $50,000. The U.S. lawsuit against Airbnb was almost certainly settled privately, quietly. The listing vanished from the platform. Carla's story is a gut-wrenching collision of a predator's opportunity and a system's complacency. She didn't seek out danger. She booked a highly rated rental in a gated complex with security. She did everything a savvy traveler is supposed to do. Her crime was trusting the symbols of safety, the gate, the uniform, the 5-star rating. Her case forces an uncomfortable reckoning for the age of the sharing economy. When you rent a dream vacation, who is really on the other side of the door? The vetted employee of a corporate hotel, or a man with a master key and a past no one bothered to ask about? Carla Stefaniac's glass wasn't just half full, it was overflowing with life. That life was taken in a place where she was promised sanctuary by the very person paid to guard it, while two multi-billion-dollar companies argued they had no duty to look beyond the lockbox. The storm outside that night was loud, but the silence from those who could have prevented this tragedy, that's the sound that lingers.